What is the ultimate plan, though? Like, have they thought it through at all? Let's say that just this handful of billionaires get to do what they want and they absorb the little bit that's left in the economy. Let's say that's what happens next. Where the fuck is everything then? You literally just want paper money? Like, you just want it to sit there because you want power? Okay, so everything's gone. All the people that provided entertainment, gone. All the people that provided services, gone. All the services, gone. Anything worth joy, gone. When no one but the lazy, don't know anything at all morons that are billionaires are the only ones left, guess what? Everything's gone. What's the fucking point? Do you get what I'm saying? Like, talk about cutting off your nose to spite your own face. What is it worth? What does it matter if it's all gone? And to be crystal fucking clear, this process has been going on for decades. It's just we've been speed running this shit the last year. The loss has been happening. How many people do you suppose belonged in positions of power in whatever way that may present itself that literally could not get there because they couldn't do anything but just work to survive? I mean, just imagine the entertainment, healthcare, education, infrastructure, all these kinds of things that should be being improved that can't make any headway because we have billionaires that literally just want money to sit there. With the amount of money this country actually has, we could be living in a utopia for everyone, and instead this is what we're doing. Make it make sense.
Here's the thing nobody wants to say out loud. Hoarding only works if there's something left to hoard. You can't rule a wasteland. You can't sell to a graveyard. The math on absorb everything and let everyone else collapse ends in one place. And it's not a yacht, it's a bunker. Billionaires speed-running feudalism while calling it innovation. Make it make sense indeed.
This is coming to an end right now. If you haven't seen it yet, somehow, new emails just dropped between Jeffrey Epstein and people like Ghislaine Maxwell and Michael Wolff, confirming for us two things we've already known. That Donald Trump was intimately involved in Epstein's child rape ring, and that so many people, a disgusting amount of people, knew and did nothing because it benefited them to stay quiet. The emails include lines like, Trump is the dog that hasn't barked yet. That Trump spent hours alone with one of the victims whose name was redacted from the email. And even discussions about what Trump should say when the media inevitably asked him about his close relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. And again, these emails go back over a decade to 2011, I think was the earliest that we saw. Meaning, again, people knew. The FBI has had this information, and they didn't do anything about it. Bet they're really regretting that now, huh?
Bro, decade-old information sitting in a filing cabinet and nobody touched it. Not because they couldn't, because it was convenient not to. That's the part that should make every single person furious, regardless of what side you're on. Power protecting power. Same as it ever was, and now the inconvenience has flipped. Funny how that works.
Because not only is the truth now finally trickling out little bit by little bit, but Republicans are jumping ship like rats off the Titanic. Yep, you heard that right. Since Representative Adelita Grijalva's official swearing in and signing of the discharge petition, 3 more Republicans have come forward and broken ranks to support the release of these files. Warren Davidson, Eli Crane, and Don Bacon, giving us now 7 Republicans that have gone on record breaking party lines to say they'll do this. And remember, y'all, what Democratic Representative Eric Swalwell said a few weeks ago, maybe a few months ago at this point, but that he knew firsthand that there were around 100 Republicans in the House willing to come forward and vote their conscience if the discharge petition was actually brought to a vote. So based on all that and what we know, what we see, I think there's going to be a lot more where those 3 came from.
7 publicly, 100 waiting. Man, that's not courage, that's calculation. Nobody in that building moves first unless they've already done the math on survival. But once the first few jump and don't get destroyed, the floodgates open, political loyalty is just risk management dressed in a suit, and right now the risk of staying is starting to outweigh the risk of leaving.
MAGA Mike Grinder Johnson has said that he'll hold the vote to release the files next week, which, annoying, I know, but it's just procedure. There's a certain time frame from when you get the discharge petition to the floor to when you can actually have the vote. It's 5 to 7 days. And just to be clear, y'all, because I see comments about this a lot, but this is not legislation. It's just a discharge petition, meaning once it goes through the House, it doesn't have to go to the Senate and then to Trump's desk. It is just in the House. This is just a request, basically, to get information to the House to review. And according to reports, Trump is out here like begging Lauren Boebert, begging Nancy Mace to switch their vote to protect him. Which, yeah, sure, would be worrying, but with those two specifically, I think that their conspiracy-addled minds, whenever they hear him doing that, that's just making them double down and really, really realize, oh wait, there is a cover-up. So I think it's helping. And like I always say, y'all, don't trust them, but let them. If their chaos and shenanigans are ultimately fighting for the same thing that we want, which is to release these files, I'm gonna sit back and let them. They are losing. And they are losing so bad.
Losing so bad they can't even see the full picture of how bad it is. Like a guy who just totaled his car arguing about the scratch on the bumper, the defections, the files, the fractures, the deleted videos. Bro, these aren't separate problems. That's one problem. Wearing different clothes. And it's only getting louder.
I still am of the mind and of the belief that this will be over by the holidays. But what do y'all think? Comment below. Have you noticed MAGA acting, talking, behaving a little bit differently? Especially now that fascism is collapsing all around them? Comment below. Let me know what you think. Let's show everyone that we're winning this fight, because we are. Sometimes the fight just takes a little longer. So yeah, like, comment, share with a friend, and follow along for more updates on the slow, spectacular collapse of America as we know it.
When Trump was sworn in, I started bookmarking all of the MAGA videos who were just so excited for their daddy to be back in office. I remembered that I had that collection this morning. I go back to check. I had about 50 videos saved. Only 2 are left. 2! MAGA is slowly leaving, and they're not announcing it. They're just deleting their videos and sinking back into the darkness of the abyss from which they spawned. As if they weren't spreading their cheeks and popping their tutors for that turd back in January. I feel vindicated on one hand, but I also really wanted to drag them.
The silent delete. That is the most revealing thing a person can do online. No apology, no explanation. No, I was wrong. Just gone. Because an apology requires confronting what you did. But a delete lets you pretend you were never really that person. Except the internet has receipts. We always have receipts.
A lot of you don't know how to talk about MAGA and like the infighting or whatever. None of that fucking matters. None of it fucking matters. Every single time I see a post online that's like, oh my God, Marjorie Taylor Greene is breaking away from the Republican Party. No, she's not. Oh my God, Trump is in a feud with such and such. No, it doesn't really matter. Because at the end of the day, what everybody needs to understand the most, okay, is that Republicans have been working on this plan for 60 years. The individual people don't matter. Like the individual actors, the individual moments of, oh my God, they rolled their eyes. Oh my God, Mitch McConnell fell over. Oh my God, none of that really fucking matters. Because they have a plan. They have an overarching plan. They have a plan that has withstood every single one of the people that are in office and have been in office for the last 60 years. And they know that that plan will outlive them. And they are completely fine with that happening. Trump is just the current actor of what the plan is. He's the current enactor of what they are doing. And they have never been wedded to individuals or a cult of personality. They use those as weapons, but at the end of the day, they are sticking with their plan. And that's why I focus on Democrats more, because they don't have one. They don't have a plan. They don't have an overarching ideal that they're working towards for the next 60 years. And no amount of, oh, we need to focus on this stuff now. Oh, we need to do this now. None of that fucking matters if you have nothing to get people to buy in on. Because I've said this before and I'll say it again. Politics is like selling perfume via video. You don't have the product in your hand. You can't smell it. You can't feel the packaging. You can't do any of those things. But the seller needs to do is allow you to believe enough in the vision that scent that you cannot utilize right now is worthy enough of your money that you will buy into it with no other indication than what they are selling you on that screen. Piecemeal policies that are band-aids on bullet wounds.
60 years versus Whatever Democrats are doing, she's right and it's uncomfortable. One side has been playing a long game with patience, infrastructure, institutions, court seats, and a vision that outlives individual people. The other side shows up every 4 years with a slogan and crossed fingers. You don't beat a 60-year plan with a moment. You beat it with a counter plan, and until that exists, you're not really competing. You're just reacting. That's the honest truth, and most people don't want to hear it.
Not gonna matter. A vision of the future that competes and actually outpaces the Republican plan, that's what matters. And until we get people in office that are reflective of that plan, that believe in that plan, that are willing to create a vision that will outlast even them, nothing's gonna move forward. Even Mom Donnie is not a part of that plan. Okay? He is merely a catalyst for showing the differentiation between what elected Democrats, establishment Democrats believe in versus what populist economic messaging can do to get people elected. But he's a mayor of New York. This is like a vision that needs to be everywhere.
With more content about hating wokeness than loving others. And the worst part? The Lord was warning me through the Holy Spirit the whole time about this rabbit hole, but I wasn't listening. I tuned out the voices of God to listen to the voices of conservative media. I'm posting this video because I wanted to make it very known that I have been a hypocrite. Matthew 7:5 says to first take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye, with the log and speck referring to sin. It is not like Jesus to have condemnation in my heart for those who are liberal or leftist or pro-choice or feminist or transgender. This doesn't mean I now support or affirm those ideas listed, but I will say that I have wrongly judged these people harshly in my heart, and am turning away from my hateful ways to follow Jesus, the Savior, who died on the cross for all who have sinned, and lovingly desires for everyone, including all whom I've mentioned, to call him Lord so that they may be forgiven. This video will mark my new turning point, from having Christ be an accessory to my conservatism, to having Jesus Christ be at the core of everything I believe.
Hey, just some guy here, and I really don't know how to get this in front of MAGA, but share it if you know anybody out there, because this is the psychological breakdown.
Identity attack. That is the unlock right there. The second you understand that MAGA isn't processing disagreement as disagreement, but as existential threat, everything makes sense. The rage, the doubling down, the inability to admit error. None of it is stupidity. It's self-preservation. A person will fight harder to protect their identity than their actual interests. Every single time. That's not a political observation. That's just human psychology.
So, again, let's stop pretending this is about policy. This isn't about tax brackets. It isn't about border logistics. It isn't even about religion. It's about identity. MAGA is not a platform. It's a feeling. And that feeling is loss. Loss of cultural dominance, loss of automatic deference, loss of being centered in every room. When you've been told your whole life that you are the default setting for America, equality feels like displacement. That's the psychology. Pluralism feels like erasure. Diversity feels like demotion. Shared power feels like theft. So you create a story. The story says it's not the country that is changing. It's that it's being ruined. The way you're not afraid, that way you're righteous. You're not anxious, you're defending civilization. You're not reacting emotionally, you're saving the republic. That's how grievance turns into ideology. And here's the darker part. Authoritarian movements don't run on strength, they run on insecurity. They promise restoration, not progress. They promise order, not justice. They promise dominance, not equality, because dominance feels stable. It's easier to believe immigrants are the problem than to confront economic systems. It's easier to blame wokeness than to admit society outgrew you. It's easier to worship a strongman than to tolerate uncertainty. So when someone criticizes MAGA, it doesn't feel like disagreement. It feels like identity attack. That's why the reactions are so intense. Because if the movement is wrong, then the fear was unnecessary. And if the fear was unnecessary, then the anger was misdirected. And that is a brutal thing to sit with. So instead, you double down. Not because you're evil, not because you're stupid, because admitting you were manipulated is psychologically devastating. And the movement knows that. It feeds the grievance. It rewards the outrage. It punishes the doubt. That's not conservatism. That's emotional capture. And once identity fuses with politics, facts no longer threaten arguments. They threaten your self-worth. That's why this feels existential. Because for some of you, without the grievance, there's nothing left holding it together. That's just some guy's thoughts.
And I don't think people really realize how counterintuitive the hate that I receive when you can take one look at my page and see that I am doing the work.
This is the part of the process that most women cannot handle. It's where most of them stop. You have to learn to bear the existence of being othered, of being perceived differently than you know yourself to be, of being judged. That's the work, friend. And it's kind of like how when you expect someone to be grateful for a gift, then it makes it not a gift anymore because it was always about you and it was never about them. It's the same thing with deconstructing and activism. It is not just the intellectual waking up and the physicality of going to protests and the organizing of groups. It's also being willing to endure the same discomfort that you have perpetuated onto others most of your life. And I say this with love, as an Asian woman who was adopted by white parents that I love dearly. Things are never harder than we thought they would be. They're harder in different ways that make us uncomfortable in different ways than we thought they would. There are never any shortcuts to your own evolution, so you're going to have to process through rather than around and stop looking for that around. The net will be there. As long as you continue to act from a place of sincerity, you'll find your people. If you chicken out and regress to a place of manufactured victimhood, it will not be. To be serious about a change of heart, a leveling up of discernment, an awakening is what it truly is, then it doesn't matter how many people react poorly to you because you won't be centering yourself anymore. I'm not a professional, but to me it really feels like this is still so fairly new to you, right? And I feel for you that you're still resisting. You're still kind of holding out hope that you'll be able to get through this without having to surrender your entire self, right? But you're going to have to. You're still in the devastation part of grieving. You haven't quite reached acceptance yet, and it will be easier when you do, The amount of discomfort that you're willing to step into is going to equal the amount of growth and support you'll be able to receive, right? And something else I want you to remember, friend, is that you have come from a bubble of privilege and have therefore always dealt with people of privilege. You haven't ever had to deal with people that have had to endure lifelong trauma or bullying and racism and hatred and ableism and othering. So you will have to learn how to interact with people on a fundamentally different level. Your bandwidth for humility and awareness is going to have to level up just as much as your intentions and your intellectualized opinions and realizations are. Remember that just because people are not praising you and welcoming you on your journey doesn't mean that they're not silently watching and holding out a little bit of hope for you,
I thought it would be easier talking about leaving MAGA as a 3-time Trump voter than it is, but some of y'all are really mean. And I get this was me this time last year, but that doesn't matter because again, my feelings matter. Yours never mattered. The level of hate I'm getting is unreal. People telling me to have accountability, to put the work into my community instead of coming on the internet and crying for myself. Like, you just don't get it. So much for the tolerant left. You guys are exactly how the right describes you. Like, how do you not get that this shit is hard?
I thought it would be easier the more I talked about leaving MAGA, being a 3-time Trump voter. But I have to be completely honest with you that it's not getting easier. And it actually feels like it's getting more difficult because I'm gaining more empathy.
3 times is wild.
3 times and now expecting immediate absolution. And the response she's getting is also telling, because the left is doing its own version of the same thing, making the returning person the villain. so nobody has to do the uncomfortable work of actually bringing them back. You can be right about the harm and wrong about the response. Both things are true. The goal is deprogramming more people, not collecting scalps.
And trying to guilt trip and manipulate people for not immediately forgiving you for all the harm and damage you've caused to them is such peak narcissistic MAGA behavior. And I'm glad that you've learned the word centering yourself and you're very positive and open to feedback, so I'm going to deliver this as gently as possible. Now, I don't usually get involved in the ex-MAGA conversations because a lot of people obviously have different opinions that are very complex and valid. But I think for me and a lot of people, it falls under the topic of you don't need to forgive and forget in order to move forward. And a lot of us will never forgive you. And I will agree, like you said in your crime video, it's not necessarily always the most helpful thing to put someone down as they're actively trying to unpack. So in those moments, I adhere to the if you have nothing nice to say, don't say it at all rule personally. But when I saw your original video that was going viral, here was my thought process that might be helpful for you going forward. First, I saw it, and like everyone else, I thought immediately 3 times, God damn, yikes. And then I opened up the comment section and saw everyone saying, girl, 3 times, we do not forgive you. And to that I said, sounds about right. But then I saw the people who found this information useful. They could relate to you, or maybe their family and friends, and they needed this. And to that I said, those are the people you need to exist for. That's a niche I'm not filling, and I guess someone has to. So understand that the rest of us have been living with this empathy you've recently come across for quite some time, and we're quite tired. And you don't get to harm people for that long and then turn around and immediately demand and expect them to welcome you with open arms. But you do have a niche and a purpose I think you could provide that could bring you that validation you're looking for.
This is officially the thing that has broken MAGA.
The war on Iran has begun. The guys and the gals who have to actually carry out this mission, why again? And put their lives on the line for whom again? But my own feeling is no one should have to die for a foreign country. I don't think those 4 service members died for the United States. I think they died for Iran or for Israel. But our government's job is not to look out for Iran or for Israel. It's to look out for us. And this feels very much to me like it is clearly Israel's war.
You know, it's pretty bad when the woman who came out and literally defended child rape and defended Epstein is calling this war a no-no, okay? And I don't know if you've been over on Twitter lately, but it is a literal war zone amongst conservatives typically when us as influencers make these posts and we say, yeah, the conservatives are questioning their own party. That typically includes just a handful. That would be Massey, MTG, Fuentes, and that's pretty much it. Every single time, those 3 are the loudest against their own party. This time, it's different. I'm talking Matt Walsh, who, as of yet, has not really questioned anything Trump has done. Julian's Rum, saying, I voted for Trump, I won't be voting again. Many young conservatives feel the same way. We are sick of this shit. The Hodge twins, who have spent the last 2 days just shitposting against this war and against Trump, they are fed up. Evan Kilgore, who is literally saying, fuck this shit, MAGA is dead, I'm not voting in the midterms.
Walsh, the Hodge twins, Julian's Rum. When the architects of the movement start posting, I'm done, that's not a crack, that's structural failure. These aren't fringe accounts quietly drifting away. These are the load-bearing walls. And when the load-bearing walls go, everything above them comes down with it. The base isn't being abandoned by leadership, the leadership is being abandoned by its own conscience. Love to see it.
Bruce Fenton, who is literally showing in this post a picture of him and Donald Trump in which he had, that he chose to tear up because he's just done. And a whole host of others that I'm actually just going to play here while I finish up this video because I could not even show you all of them. It would take way too long. These are all accounts, and I encourage you to go back through this. Pause and read every single one of these tweets. You're going to have your mind blown. These are huge accounts who are coming out and not just saying, hey, we disagree with you on this a little bit, you know, but straight up saying that they're not voting, that MAGA is done for. Love to see it. This is exactly what happens when you turn against your own voter base. You deserve every ounce of destruction. My name is Mercedes.
So here's where we land. The files are leaking, the votes are fracturing, the videos are disappearing, the loudest voices are going quiet or turning. This is not a bad week for MAGA. This is the beginning of an unraveling that's been building for years. But don't get comfortable, because the 60-year plan she talked about, that doesn't die with a movement, it just finds a new vehicle. The real question isn't whether MAGA collapses, it's what fills the space it leaves behind. Drop a comment. Are you watching this play out in your own life, your own feed, your own family? Because I know you are. Like, share, follow along. This story is far from over. This is Mind Mirror. See you next time.